Hi. Welcome to the skeletal system. I'm excited to talk about the skeletal system with you. And before we dive into bones, we're going to start by talking about the cartilage that makes up the skeletal system. So originally, like when babies are born, their whole skeleton is made of cartilage, but then most of that turns into bone. So as like adults, we only have a few areas of cartilage left in our bodies. So we're going to talk about that today. Skeleton's happy to start our system as well. So, skeletal cartilage is made of cartilage tissue. And if you think of our four main tissue groups, we have epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. Cartilage is going to fall in the connective tissue category. Cartilage is made primarily of water, which makes it highly resilient. That means like you can kind of like press on it and do things to it, and it's going to be able to spring back and maintain its original shape. So connective tissue has a whole range of categories. It's not like epithelial, where you can just say like the whole thing is not innervated. But cartilage itself doesn't have any nerves. It's not innervated. Some connective tissue has nerves. Cartilage itself, no nerves. It's also avascular, so no blood vessels. No nerves, no blood vessels in cartilage. So where does it get its nourishment from? If it doesn't have any blood vessels, cartilage is surrounded by a membrane called the perichondrium, and that provides all of its nutrients and oxygen and waste removal. So we're never going to see very thick cartilage. It has to be thin enough that the nutrients are still able to diffuse. And the cellular makeup, there's three different types of cartilage, but they all have the same basic cellular makeup. Their cells are called chondrocytes. Cyte means cell, and they're held in these little like cocoons called lacuna. So the cartilage tissue itself is hard, like you can imagine like bone is hard. So let's say that this is my sketch of bone, and most of it is made up of that extracellular matrix. So hard things that are in it just aren't bone. Because it's so hard, there's nowhere for the cells to be. So we have to actually like carve out little pockets, and those pockets are called lacuna. So this little pocket right there would be like one lacuna, and this pocket right there would be another lacuna. And then inside of that lacuna, there would be a chondrocyte and its nucleus. There's another chondrocyte and its nucleus. So this part is the extracellular matrix that holds all the cells. The green part is the lacuna where the cell lives, and then we have the actual cell itself, the chondrocyte. Hopefully you can see that a little bit. So refresher, from when we looked at the tissue unit, this is what the cartilage looks like. This is hyaline cartilage. Hyaline actually means glassy. So if we look at it, like we can see the chondrocytes and they're sitting in a lacuna. The whole extracellular matrix is just like really smooth. That's where hyaline gets its name from. And it's smooth because it doesn't have any like thick fibers or anything like that. It does have thin collagen fibers, but it's like they're so little and they're so close together, they don't even show up as lines. Here's elastic cartilage. It looks pretty similar to hyaline, like we have our same little chondrocytes there, but do you see like kind of these dark black lines that are going all the way through it? That is the fibers. Like those are the elastic fibers that makes the elastic fiber able to like stretch and bend. So it's like hyaline, but more flexible. And then here's fibrocartilage. This one looks pretty different. So I can see like a few lines of chondrocytes right there. I can see their nuclei, but in between them, there's just like tons of really thick blue lines. Those are thick collagen fibers. So lots of fibers making this really strong connective tissue. Now we're going to talk about each type of cartilage in a little bit more detail. Starting with hyaline cartilage, we just looked at it, has very round cells and fine collagen fibers that make a smooth surface. And its function is to be able to support and reinforce things, kind of like a place that needs a cushion or just a little bit of extra kind of protection. And hyaline cartilage is the most abundant cartilage, so we are going to find it all throughout the body. It makes up the embryonic skeleton. So like when I said babies are first born and we're all cartilage, we're all hyaline cartilage. So like when you're born, you have no bones. All of this is hyaline cartilage. It's also found in the articular cartilages. Articular means like joint. So like I'm bending Bernard's like elbow joint right there. The end of this bone will be covered in cartilage. Or if we can see this, like the end of this bone right here would be covered in cartilage so that when we move, there's something to be able to cushion it right there. And then we have costal cartilages. Costal means rib. Let me get our small skeleton. So this one. So this bone right here is your sternum or your breastbone, and these are your ribs. And then this yellow part in between here is cartilage. This is hyaline cartilage. And let's take a minute and let's think like, why does our rib cage have cartilage? Why couldn't it just all be bone? Take a deep breath. Every time we breathe, our rib cage is going to expand slightly and then go down. I'm exaggerating it so that we can talk about it. But think if this was all bone, there would be no expansion possible. We couldn't breathe, we would die. And then where else? All of our respiratory pathways, like our breathing pathways, and our nose has cartilage. So this is my little diagram of the esophagus, the tube where the food goes down, and the trachea. So you can feel your trachea right here. It has you can feel the cartilage rings on it. So like this would be the trachea right here, and behind it is the esophagus. So the respiratory packages like the trachea are made of hyaline cartilage, and then like your nose, like all of this right here that you could bend, that's actually hyaline cartilage as well. Hyaline cartilage is what we call gristle. Like if you're a meat eater, you know that part of meat that's like gross and has no flavor and is like tough and chewy? That is your hyaline cartilage. So it's this kind of white part in the middle of that piece of meat right there. And then elastic cartilage. Very similar to hyaline cartilage, but has more elastic fibers. That relates to its function of being much more bendable. And elastic cartilage is only found in two places, your ears and your epiglottis. So like take a minute and bend your ears. Like obviously they're not bone because they're bending, but like we're maintaining that shape. So I'm able to bend it, but the whole structure of my external ear is cartilage. And we can compare that to like this kind of like not very bendable hyaline cartilage, and then very bendable elastic cartilage. And then your epiglottis is the tube that covers your trachea when you swallow food. So like both of these would be in the back of my mouth. So when I swallow food, I want the food to go down the esophagus and the air to go down the trachea. The epiglottis is this little flap that covers the trachea and prevents the food from going down the wrong pipe. So like epiglottis open, epiglottis closed, epiglottis open, epiglottis closed. And again, in the body, like I can't show it to you, it's like in the back of my throat. Ooh, and this one is easy to remember because it's like E. Elastic cartilage, external ear, epiglottis, E. And our last type of cartilage is fibrocartilage. This is the one that has like straight rows of cells and then all those thick collagen fibers. When you see those thick collagen fibers, you should be thinking about how strong it is. So fibrocartilage is going to be found in those regions that are subject to like a lot of pressure and a lot of stretching placed on them. Like needs to be able to move without breaking. So the places in our body where we have the most pressure in between our intervertebral discs. So like these things right here, like these bones are your vertebrae. And then I'm actually This is like a section of your vertebrae. And you have like the little processes that stick out your back. So if I turn this sideways, that yellow thing right there is your spinal cord, and it's protected by the vertebra. And like think about how we can rotate like this. That's because the vertebrae are able to rotate as well. So they need a layer of cartilage in between them to be able to like facilitate that rotation. So this is fibrocartilage. We stand on this all day. We put an immense amount of pressure on it. Like, have you heard that thing where you're taller first thing in the morning because your body like is able to stretch out? That's your fibrocartilage actually stretching out. So fibrocartilage in between the discs. And then where else in your pubic symphysis? So can you see Bernard and his hip bones? This is his pubic symphysis. And then I have one where I think I can bring it a little bit closer to you. So our hips are not all bone. This front part right here is fibrocartilage. Think about how much weight is on your hips. Like that needs that dense fibrocartilage. If it was elastic or hyaline, it would just squish. And why do we need to have cartilage right here? When we have a baby, this whole area needs to be able to expand to be able to fit the baby through it. If it can't expand, baby's not getting out. And yeah, that's a nice review picture. I know you can't see it very well, but if you want to check out in your book, it shows everything I just said all on one image. And please email me questions. Please email me if this was like a weird format and I shouldn't do it again because it was too hard to see, or if you liked it. Thanks.